1077 The Bronx, 1077thebronx.com, winner of 3 2026 Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Media Awards, Best On-Air Pledge Drive for our first ever radiothon, Best Giveaway for Wake Up Riders Morning Bagel Run and Jewelry Spree, and Best Station Poster by Jake Goebel for Scream Screen. This is Alex Pinsky here with Football Squared, and welcome back everybody to another week of football and soccer. It's been a relatively boring one, actually, all things considered. I mean, free agency is really starting to die down. We're getting really close to the draft. That's next week already, which we will do my final mock draft on next Tuesday. But for today, we are going to cover the news around the league, the top 15 remaining free agents, and then move on to soccer at the end, as always. So, to kick it off, the Texans exercised the 2027 fifth-year options on both C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. Both are going to be looking to make a lot of money off of their extensions that they are due to sign next season, and I don't know how the Texans expect to be able to pay the both of them and also keep together a lot of that team. I mean, CJ Stroud is a complicated one because he started off really good. He had an incredible rookie season, but he's never really made it back to that level. So it's hard to say how much money he deserves or if he even deserves to be paid as much as the top 10 quarterbacks in the league right now because he hasn't proved that he can continue to play at that level. So this next season is going to be a massive one for CJ Stroud. In terms of Will Anderson, he is going to get the bag. That is one of the best edge rushers in the league, one of the youngest edge rushers in the league at the kind of caliber that he is. So the Texans are going to have to shell out a lot of money to keep Will Anderson, and if they don't, then somebody else will. So it's a complicated situation down in Houston. I don't want to say it feels like their window's closing now that they're going to have to start paying the guys that they drafted, but you can certainly feel it getting closer and closer to the point where they're going to have to switch directions, or else they're just going to be stuck with the same formula and nothing's going to change. The Giants made another signing. This one I don't really like, I'm not going to lie. The Giants signed former Ravens offensive guard Daniel Faalele on a one-year deal. Now, for those of you who know who Faalele is, he's kind of like Evan Neal at the offensive guard position, at least from what I've seen. He's like 6'8", 330. The guy's massive, but he's just not good. Like, if you watch his highlights from last season, there were plenty of times where he would just completely miss blocking assignments. He would miss double teams. He would leave lanes wide open, and it was a big reason why the Ravens had issues on the offensive line. So I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of this signing. Now, do I think that he's a Harbaugh guy and Harbaugh could turn him around? Different system, different team. Sometimes it works. It worked with Daniel Jones. He looked great on the Colts this year. So who knows? Maybe Harbaugh can turn around Faalele. Maybe we could have a genuine usable offensive guard. But based on face value, I'm not the biggest fan of this, especially considering there are higher caliber offensive guards, which I will get into later. There are plenty of good offensive linemen left in free agency for teams that might need them. But Faalele just kind of feels like I don't want to call it a desperation signing, but we have no cap space left and we needed somebody, so we got him. You know, I don't know if it's going to pan out or not. I don't see it working based off of how he played last season, but we'll have to see how it goes. I don't think he's going to end up starting from day one. At least that's the assumption. But who knows? If we go into the season with Faalele as our starting guard, so be it. I just hope that he can turn it around to some extent now that he's on the Giants. Another offensive line news. Falcons' longtime right tackle Caleb McGarry announced his retirement. Solid career. He was an anchor on that offensive line, just always reliable. He'll be missed by the Falcons, but like I said, still plenty of free agents available, still plenty of draft picks. There's so many offensive linemen available still, combining the draft with who's left in free agency, that it shouldn't be much of an issue for the Falcons, but it does suck that they're losing on the line, someone that has been so familiar with the scheme and has played on the team for so long. So tough loss for the Falcons, but I think they'll be able to move past it. That offense is already so high caliber. The potential of that team is through the roof. If they can play to how they're supposed to, I mean, it kind of, in my mind at least, falls down to how Michael Penix does this year, because there's so many question marks surrounding Michael Penix. And, I mean, they have Tua now. I don't think Tua is going to be any better. I mean, I wouldn't put my faith in Tua if I was the Falcons, but they seem to have thought it was a decent idea. But Penix has to show up. Because if Penix can show up, it's then Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They have such a high-powered offense that they should be in contention for the NFC South. I think the NFC South is going to be an extremely complicated division this year. I think it probably is going to end up being a similar outcome to last year in the sense that I don't think any of the teams in that division are necessarily great teams, but I do think that they're all very capable teams. So that's going to be a very interesting division to keep an eye on. There's a lot of young talent on all of those teams, and it's going to be fun to watch. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I feel like refereeing is such a difficult thing to get right in any sports league. I don't think there's a single league in the world where you can confidently say the referees are consistently good. I mean, you look at soccer with Liverpool, I mean, we're always having decisions go against us. In the MLB, they had to add the at-bat system because the umpires were so bad. I mean, I don't know. Refereeing seems like an art that is never going to be perfected, but I hope that it can, because it's so annoying when a game is dictated by the refs or decided by a ref's decision, especially one that's the wrong one. Speaking of the Falcons, they were quick to sign their replacement. I do still think they could be in the market for someone in the draft because I don't consider Jawan Taylor a long-time replacement, but they did sign Jawan Taylor, the former Chiefs offensive tackle, Mr. False Start himself. For those of you who don't know, the big thing about Jawan Taylor was that he false started on a lot of the Chiefs' plays and was rarely called for it. That was one of the big things during that, 3 Super Bowl run from them, that Chiefs dynasty that we had, that everyone complained about, and it was that Jawan Taylor was always false starting. He's also just not that good of a tackle, at least in my opinion. I feel like the money that he's gotten paid on the contracts that he's had has not summed up to the performance that he's given to the Chiefs, but the Falcons just needed a placeholder. McGarry retiring might not have been something they expected. I'm sure to some extent he had informed them that he was thinking about it, but they had to do something to fill that hole, and they got a placeholder. It's a fine signing. You know, they got their placeholder. They got their guy that they can stick in there while they look for the long-term replacement. Because like I said, Jawan Taylor is not a long-term replacement, at least not in my eyes. The bit of a positional update, the Jaguars are officially making Travis Hunter a full-time corner, part-time receiver. This is a very split decision. There's a lot of people that believe he's a better receiver than he is corner. I think that they should have kept him more geared towards receiver. I feel like he was really starting to embrace that receiver role and really get more involved in the offense before his injury last season. But, I think he's talented at both positions. You can't really go wrong. He will still have gadget plays on offense, but it's no longer going to be the 50-50 split that they did last season, which I get. It's hard to keep that up. It's hard to meet the physical demands for not only one position in the NFL, but 2 positions in the NFL. So, excuse me. I understand the move. I don't think there was a wrong decision per se. I think that no matter where they put him, he's going to ball out. So I'm excited to see that Jags team next year. I think they've put together a very exciting young core of players. Now they just got to figure out how to get Brian Thomas Jr. involved again, because it kind of feels like they forgot about him last season, which makes no sense to me because he's incredible. He's such a good receiver, and they just forgot about him. I get they picked up Jacoby Myers, and he started balling out at midseason, but I just don't know how you can forget about someone like Brian Thomas Jr. It makes no sense to me. Up next, the Eagles picked up another receiver. They traded for Packers wide receiver Dontavian Wicks, further fueling the A.J. Brown trade rumors. Excuse me. Still getting over a cold. But yeah, they picked up Dontavian Wicks. They added another depth piece in my mind. I don't see Dontavian Wicks as more than a depth piece. And a lot of people, I don't understand why, but when he was in Green Bay, I feel like a lot of people treated him as some highly touted prospect or some super talented, young, crazy prospect that they could plug in and he would break out. And he never put up those kind of numbers, but people kept going at the fact that Dontavian Wicks is one of the better receivers in that receiving corps. But I would have taken Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs over him. So I never saw what people saw in him, but the Eagles need to pick up somebody because they're probably going to lose A.J. Brown. So they just have to build up depth at this point. Devonta Smith is going to need supplement in his first season as a wide receiver 1 because I don't think that he's incapable of doing it. I think he's very capable of doing it. I think Devonta Smith is a very good receiver. But I also think that when you're in your first season of that kind of workload, you want to have supporting pieces to kind of take a little pressure off you. So it'll be good to kind of take kind of ease Devonta Smith into the position, not just toss him to the Wolves and be like, hey, you're expected to be our main guy now. They're going to ease him into it. They're going to get him guys that Jalen Hurts can still rely on if he has to. And I think that's the right decision. I think that they're doing this well. I think that they're going about the fact that their star wide receiver wants out about as well as they can. And if I'm complimenting the Eagles, then you know that they're doing the right thing. So, like I said, nothing flashy, not a huge crazy trade, but it does further advance the rumor that A.J. Brown is not going to be a Philadelphia Eagle by next season. So that'll be a big loss for them, and we'll have to see how Dontavian Wicks does in his absence, I guess. And then finally, like I said, not a lot this week. Chargers superstar safety Derwin James is reportedly looking for a new contract extension that would likely be a record-breaking one. Now, Again, this is another complicated situation for me because I don't think that Derwin James is a bad football player. Not at all. I think Derwin James is incredible, but he's like 31. I don't know at the safety position how you could command a record-breaking deal at a age past 30. But, I mean, hey, man, if he can keep it up, then I say he's worth the money because regardless what you think of his age, Derwin James is an elite safety. There's no doubt about that. He's been an elite safety for a very long time now. So if they do pay him the money, I don't think it's necessarily unjustified. I don't think it's unwarranted. I don't think it's a bad deal. I just think that record-breaking might be a bit much for him, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who they're going to bring in, who else they're going to sign, who they're going to draft. Maybe they get someone to play up there with him. So it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to think about. But if he does get re-signed, it is going to be for a large bag of cash. And I think that if he does get signed, if I had to put the money somewhere, I'm going to say somewhere in the 25 mil range, I would say. I think that's right. I'm pretty sure that's record-breaking for safeties. Maybe like a 2 or 3 year, $20 to $25 million deal. That's what I'm going to put it at. Maybe if it reaches 30, then I'm going to be like, okay, that's a bit much. But you got to remember that players are starting to get paid more and more and more money every single year. The more that they increase the salary cap, which they did again this year, they're going to keep giving more money to players. So he's due for a big contract. How big, that is yet to be seen. So that's all the news I got for you. We are going to head into our first set of underwriting announcements before I cover my top 15 remaining free agents in the NFL. The entries have all been submitted for 1077 The Bronx first ever Build the Ultimate Bronkwich contest. The culinary team at Ryder Dining Services is busy evaluating each recipe in their test kitchen, and we are anxiously awaiting which students and their Bronkwitches will make the Magnificent Seven. Watch your Ryder email to find out which Bronkwich made the cut and which sandwich ended up on the chopping block. Then go to our Instagram at 1077thebronx.com to watch the IG reels from each of our 7 contestants. The student reel with the most views will make it to the Tasty 3 and the Build the Bronkwich finale on Tuesday, April 28th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Cranberries. We'll be back with more Football Squared after these underwriting announcements on your 3-time 2026 Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Media Award winner, 1077 The Bronx.
Wake Up Rider and other programming on 1077 The Bronx and 1077 The Bronx Retro is underwritten by Miller.
1077 The Bronx has very exciting news. Our new video stream is officially live. Now you can listen to The Bronx on air, online, and on app now. Watch your favorite student shows like on the Bronx live on the Bronx YouTube and at Facebook at 1077 The Bronx, including What's Next Sports, Talk of the Town Sports, Bronx After Hours, The Concast, Cliff Notes, and Wake Up Rider. Keep it tuned to The Bronx to listen to and watch your favorite student shows. Welcome back to Football Squared on your 5-time National Association of Broadcasters Marconi Radio Award nominated station 1077 The Bronx. Welcome back, everybody. We are going to go over now the top 15 remaining free agents in the NFL. With most of free agency over, a lot of the guys remaining are veterans, pieces that are going to be brought in maybe after the draft when teams can't pick up a position that they need through their picks, and they want to just fill a hole, so they sign a vet minimum guy and plug him into the team. However, it's a little different this offseason because there are still a lot of big names left. Like, a lot of big names. At number one, I put Tyreek Hill. He is still remaining with a projected annual value of $15.1 million. Excuse me. This is a complicated one. This is an extremely complicated one, mainly because of the injury that Hill's coming off of. For those of you who remember, Tyreek Hill's knee was in the wrong spot. His leg was facing the wrong direction. And I honestly wasn't sure if he would ever play football again. Apparently he is. And I don't know if I'd be willing to take a gamble on him. Purely, it's a mix of both the off-the-field issues and the fact that he's coming off such a bad injury. I don't know how good of a mix that would be to add to a team. However, he still is a talented receiver, and if someone needs a veteran guy to plug into their system, he's going to serve them well. Teams that could use him, teams that I could see picking him up, I could see the Commanders making a push and signing him on a cheap deal. I could see the Saints making a push and getting a compliment for Chris Olave. And in that, they would replace Rashid Shaheed and get another speedster back in their team. I think that there's a couple of options for Tyreek Hill, but I do think that that injury definitely makes it a little more difficult. So that's something to keep an eye on. Next up, it's another receiver, Stephon Diggs, who's projected to make $13.8 million a year. My best landing spot for him, I think, is the Dolphins. Now, I do think the Dolphins are going to draft a receiver. However, I don't think that it would be harmful to also bring in a veteran presence to help mentor that guy. And Stephon Diggs would be perfect for that. We saw what he did for the Patriots receiving corps last season. And I think that he could totally do that again for the Dolphins. That's something that I think would benefit Malik Willis, would benefit whatever receiver they end up bringing in. So my best landing spot for Stephon Diggs is most definitely the Miami Dolphins. Up at 3, we got offensive tackle Taylor Decker. He's projected to make the most money out of any remaining free agent with a $21.3 projected million AAV. There is a ton of teams that I think could use an offensive tackle of Taylor Decker's caliber. There's plenty of teams that I think have to get better at protecting the blind side of their quarterback. I could see him going to the Chargers. Actually, no, because the one position the Chargers have locked down is offensive tackle with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Honestly, they were injured all of last season. I forgot they even had them. Who do we think could use an offensive tackle? I could see the Chiefs picking him up and getting something for Mahomes when he comes back from injury. I could see the Browns making a move on him and bringing him back to protect Shador. I definitely think that there's options for Taylor Decker. The former Lion who left after a contract dispute will be looking to get paid, and whoever picks him up will have an elite caliber offensive tackle on their hands. Up next at 4, I have L'Jarius Sneed, projected to make a $10.5 million a year contract. My best fit for him is still the Giants. I think we are in such desperate need of a corner, and if we can free up the cap space to get him, then we should immediately. Granted, the only way I think that happens is if we trade Dex, which I really, really don't want to happen. I mean, if it does, if we can get a good enough package, like I said last week, if we can get a good enough package and shell off that cap space to somebody else while also bringing in a capable defensive tackle to replace him, okay. However, Dexter Lawrence is one of the most dominant defensive linemen in the league, so ideally, pay the man his money. Give him his extra $10 million a year that he wants, because he's currently on a $20 million a year contract, and he's projected to make $30 million. Give him his extra $10 million. he more than deserves it. He has more than proved that he is worth that amount of money. So I hope that we pay Dex. But if not, then I would like to see us bring in L'Jarius Sneed. Up at 5, I got Deebo Samuel, who his AAV is currently listed at 15.8 mil. That feels a little high for me. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if I'd pay that much for a receiver like Deebo, who's as old as he is and coming off of as many injuries as he's had. But I don't think he's a bad option. I still think I think if he proved anything in his 1-year tenure with the Commanders, it's that he still hasn't. He still could go out there and put up yards. He could still score. He could still give you performances. He can still play well. Is it $16 million a year? Well, I don't know. But for a receiver, I don't think it's terrible. I think that receiver-needy teams shouldn't have to worry too much purely because of how deep of a draft class it is for receivers and how many solid receivers are still left in free agency. So if your team currently has a very bleak-looking wide receiver core, I don't think there's any reason to panic just yet. There's still plenty of options for them to improve upon that. Up next, we got a couple of offensive linemen. Jonah Williams, projected to make $10.3 million a year. Then we got Jack Conklin, another former Brown, projected to make $15 million a year. And once again, another former Brown, Joel Bitonio, projected to make $13 million a year. So right there, again, man, 3 offensive linemen, 3 very capable offensive linemen at that. So I think if I had to label the strongest positions heading into this draft in terms of what's available, it's definitely receiver and offensive line. Those are the 2 positions that I feel like have the most value remaining there, especially for the contracts that you're going to have to give them. So teams like the Giants, who still need interior offensive line help, or teams like the Browns, who are still looking to find blindside blockers for their quarterback, there are plenty of options. There are so many options that you could go with. I know that not all the teams have the cap space, but these aren't the craziest contracts of all time. It's not impossible to pay them. So there's plenty of options remaining in free agency. There's plenty of options remaining at D-line, too. I mean, Hassan Reddick is still there, projected to make $5 million a year. Joey Bosa is still there, projected to make $13.8 million a year. Joey Bosa, I still think, is going to the Niners to play with Nick. It's too perfect. They need an edge rusher. He'd go play with his brother. I can't believe they haven't signed him yet. My prediction is still that Bosa is going to end up with the Niners. Hassan Reddick very well might end up being signed more as a depth guy, but I still think he's very capable of going out there and putting in a starting shift at defensive end. So whatever team ends up getting him is going to get him at a bargain price. I feel the same way about my number 11, DJ Reader, listed at $3.9 million a year, which is criminally low for a guy who, despite his age, is still a very good option at defensive tackle. He's a guy that I'd love to see the Giants pick up, even if we do end up re-signing Dex, just to add a compliment. Because just imagine for 1 second, if we head into next season with our defensive line being Abdul Carter, DJ Reader, Dexter Lawrence, Darius Alexander, and Brian Burns. Wow. And the difference between that and last year is that we have interior depth now. It has been a while since we have had a lot of interior defensive line depth, and getting that would be huge. Not to mention, we still have Kayvon. Granted, I still think he's going to get traded, whether it be within the next week or a draft day trade. I do think that we're going to end up parting ways with Kayvon Thibodeau. I just don't see a reason in keeping him. We're going to have to pay Abdul Carter. We already have Brian Burns on a huge contract. Why would we keep Kayvon just to let him walk? Because we're not going to sign him to a new deal. I would trade him and get value out of him while we still can, and that would leave us with still a very good defensive line. Excuse me. Up next, tight end David Njoku. David Njoku, excuse me. Wow. Projected to make $10 million a year. And there are plenty of tight end needy teams available too. I feel like as much as there was a ton of movement in free agency, there still is so many different positions on so many different teams that have to be filled, which makes this draft so important for so many teams. Like, look at the Giants, for example. We signed more players this season than we have in the past 5 combined. At least that's what it feels like. We've made so many free agency signings, whether it be depth guys or solid pieces at receiver that we can slot in, or starters like Isaiah Likely. So there's still so many positions that the Giants need to fill. We need to get more DBs because our corners are still bad. I wouldn't mind picking up another linebacker. We still need interior offensive line and wide receiver depth. There's still so much that we could do to improve. This draft, not only, like I said, is going to be an incredibly strong one, it's going to be an incredibly important one. This is going to be a very, very interesting draft. And I can't wait to watch it. Next week, we will finally figure out who goes where, and I cannot wait to see it. I'm so excited. Giants, just take Sonny Styles. Just let's keep it simple and take Sonny Styles. Please and thank you. Up next, a former Giant, Bobby Okereke, the middle linebacker who is projected to make $12 million a year, has plenty of options. He is still... Okay. I don't want to say he's still an elite linebacker because he's not. I love Bobby O, but he's not, okay? He was great when we first picked him up, but in these past couple of years, his tackling has kind of started to slip a little bit. He's still not bad by any means. He's still a very solid linebacker for any team to pick up. And I think at a $12 million price tag, it's a very fair contract as well. So any linebacker needy teams out there, I would go jump on Bobby Okereke. I would make that pickup before anyone else can because I feel like getting a guy who also still isn't crazy old yet that you can have for 3 to 4 years and still continue to play at a very good level is so important to have, especially at the middle linebacker position, which in my opinion is pretty much the quarterback of the defense. Maybe not in terms of like difficulty to play, but in terms of commanding their side of the football, middle linebacker is the quarterback of the defense. So having someone like Bobby Okereke would be massive for any team. And then our last two are both corners. At 14, I have Marshawn Lattimore, and at 15, I have Trayvon Diggs. Lattimore with a projected AAV of 8.5 mil, and Diggs with a projected AAV of 7.5. So, my only thing about those two, and it's why I was kind of hesitant to put them in my top 15, is that at the end of last season, both were kind of collectively agreed to be washed. I'm not gonna lie. Neither of them had very successful campaigns last season, and I think it's going to take a lot of trust for a team to sign them. However, we know what kind of levels they can play at, especially Marshawn Lattimore, okay? I don't think Trayvon Diggs is anywhere near as good as Marshawn Lattimore. I think Marshawn Lattimore still could be good. I think Trayvon Diggs still could be solid. And for the price tags that they're coming at, if a team is in desperate need of a corner, I don't think they're bad options by any means. Does that mean that I would say, yeah, you got to go sign them right now? No. I think that there's better options in the draft. I think that a lot of teams have better options, maybe already on their own team. But for a team like the Giants, who might not be in a position to draft one of the better corners that are available, I might not be totally opposed to picking up Trayvon Diggs if we can't afford L'Jarius Sneed, because it's somebody. We need somebody. Because right now, our corner core is abysmal. So hopefully, we can improve upon that a little bit, because if not, I'm going to be really worried about it heading into next season. So, that covers the top 15 remaining free agents. We're going to have a little more time left for soccer than usual, which I am very much looking forward to. But overall, free agency this season has been one of the more fun ones. It's the first one that I've ever covered like this, and following all of it has been so interesting. There's been so many moves, so much going on. It was just an insane free agency, and I cannot wait to see where the rest of these guys end up. So, with that, we're going to head into our second set of underwriting announcements now. With over 500,000 views in the last 90 days, our social media is popping. Be a part of the trend. Follow 1077 The Bronx to see what we're up to on air and behind the scenes. On Instagram at 1077 The Bronx and on TikTok at 1077 The Bronx WRRC. After you follow The Bronx on social media, spot The Bronx on and off campus. Gear up for the summer by shopping the Bronx General Store. From short sleeves tees and polos to insulated drinkware for your acai refresher, go to 1077thebronx.com/shopthebronx to make your campus fashion statement. We'll be back with more Football Squared after these underwriting announcements. While you're waiting for the return of my show, don't forget to like and follow The Bronx on Instagram at 1077thebronx and on TikTok at 1077thebronx WRRC.
There's just something about Rider University
that has allowed me to thrive as a student in and out of the classroom.
Mornings are always better when you tune in to 107.7 The Bronx, two-time IBS Media Award-winning Best Morning Show, Wake Up Rider. Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m., join Sophia, RJ, Ellis, Brian, Lathan, Brendan, and Sheer for 2 hours of fun and games, including the Monday Morning Hangover, underwritten by McGuinn's Place, and the all-new Morning Bagel Run and Jewelry Spree, underwritten by Caesar's Bagels and Deli and Peroni's Hidden Treasures in Mercerville. Go to 1077thebronx.com/wakeuprider to listen live on air, online, and on the app to catch up on past episodes. Welcome back to Football Squared on the Princeton Review's number 18th ranked best college radio station, 107.7 The Bronx. So, heading into our soccer segment now. First of all, we have a set of UCL matches tonight. The second leg of Liverpool's match against PSG at Anfield. Liverpool are currently down. It's going to be a tough comeback. I'm not going to lie. I know I usually don't talk about UCL. I usually don't talk about any teams outside of England. But for those of you who don't know, PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, won the UCL last season, and they are just an unbelievable team. They play some of the most fluent soccer you have ever seen. It really is incredible to watch as long as they're not playing your team. So, back at Anfield today, hoping we can pick up a big win. Up the Reds, come on. But heading back to Premier League action, more importantly, obviously, last week kicked off with West Ham taking down Wolves 4-0. We got a brace from Konstantinos Mavropanos and from Valentin Castellanos, man of the match. There actually went to Jared Bowen, so neither of the goal scorers got it, funnily enough. Wolves are going down. I know that there was that small little stretch where they won a couple games and drew a couple, but they're going down. They're not the worst team in Premier League history, which I'm sure they're happy about, but they're not going down, so that's good. West Ham are fighting to stay up, and as a matter of fact, as we speak, they are. And you guess who isn't? Tottenham. Tottenham, as we speak, are getting relegated. Wow, I still can't believe it. It is still so unbelievable to me that one of the big six teams is going to get relegated. Now, I mean, if it's going to be any of them, it's the history of the Tottenham. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. But I can't believe that that's actually going to happen. I hope it doesn't. It's going to be weird without Spurs, but we'll just have to wait and see. Oh, yes. This match brought me so much joy. Alex Scott scored a 74-minute winner to beat Arsenal. Bournemouth take Arsenal down 2-1. And wow, that made me so happy to watch. Thank you, Bournemouth. Thank you, guys. You guys are the best. So with that match now, as of that, Man City were, I think it was, if I remember correctly, 9 points behind Arsenal with 2 games in hand and a game against Arsenal at the Etihad coming up. Meaning, excuse me, if Man City can win their 2 games in hand and beat Arsenal at the Etihad, they are level on points with Arsenal. They're going to bottle it again, and I can't wait to watch it. Up the city. I never thought I'd say that as a Liverpool fan in a Liverpool shirt, but that's how deep my hate for Arsenal runs. Up next, I'm such a hater. I know, I'm such a hater. Everton and Brentford shared a 2-2 draw. Goals from Beto and Kieran Dewsbury Hall for Everton and a brace from Igor Thiago was enough to equalize for Brentford. Man of the match there goes to the Brazilian forward, Igor Thiago. And this has kind of been the story of the season for both of these teams. Neither of them have really been able to produce consistently or stay where they were on the table consistently. I mean, for those of you who remember, Everton got off to such an insane start at the beginning of the season. They were so good. Jack Grealish won August Man of the Month or Player of the Month. I don't know what happened to them, man, but it's been downhill ever since that first month for Everton. Up next, Brighton took down Burnley with a brace from Matt Weifer, who got the man of the match in that game. Brighton, who I feel like every season, I don't know if it's not, okay, I can't call it the same story because they finish differently every time, but every season Brighton overachieve. It's really cool to watch, I'm not going to lie. Brighton are probably one of my favorite teams outside of Liverpool because they're constantly underdogs, but they constantly perform. Now, granted, I get it was against Burnley. Burnley's not Man City or Liverpool or Arsenal or whatever, but the fact that Brighton can continuously every season exceed expectations, it's really cool to watch. So Brighton are a very fun team. Good for them. Hopefully they can secure some European soccer. Excuse me. Up next, we had Liverpool taking down Fulham. Wow, Fulham? What is wrong with me? Fulham! Finally, we won a game. Goals from Rio and Gamoa and Mo Salah. Rio and Gamoa, you've done miracles on me, my friend. I know I've already mentioned this, but he's younger than me. I'm not used to that. I'm so not used to a player on my favorite team being younger than me. So, kid's younger than me, and he's scoring bangers in the Premier League, so good for him. Mo Salah's goal, also a banger. It's always great to see him score. Man of the match goes to the youngster himself, Rio and Gamoa. Slot should start him against PSG today. I know that it's a lot for a kid that young to do in such a big match, but I think he's proved that he can do it. I think he's proved that he deserves that start. So I hope that our front three heading into this game is Rio and Gamoa, Ekitike or Isak. I'm fine with either of them, and Mo Salah. That should be how we line up against PSG tonight. Next up, we had Crystal Palace taking down Newcastle. Newcastle got out to a lead in the first half with a goal from William Osula in the 43rd minute. But Jean-Philippe Mateta with a goal in the 80th and a penalty in the 90th minute plus 4 minutes of extra time was enough to propel Crystal Palace to a much-needed victory over Newcastle and move them even further up the table. Newcastle, on the other hand, continue to drop in a very underwhelming season. I know that after losing Isak, expectations weren't necessarily sky high for them, but they were definitely higher than they've hit. I can say that for sure, and man, they've just fallen off. I don't know what's happened to Newcastle, but a team that was in the UCL beating the likes of PSG just a few years ago is now in the bottom half of the Premier League table, so they've really fallen off. Man of the match in that game ended up going to Jean-Philippe Mateta, the 2-goal scorer for Crystal Palace. Up next, Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa drew. Aston Villa getting lucky with a Murillo own goal in the 23rd minute. But Nico Williams pulling one back for Nottingham Forest in the 38th minute. Man of the match there goes to Nico Williams. Up next, we had Sunderland, who beat Spurs. Like I said, Spurs are in a really bad spot right now. And Sunderland have very pleasantly surprised me. They had a very good summer transfer window, like abnormally good for a newly promoted team, and they've made the most of it. They've had a very solid season, all things considered. A goal scored in the 61st minute by Nordi Mukiele, who also won the man of the match. Second to last game from last week, we had Manchester City beating Chelsea 3-0. Goals from Nico O'Reilly, Mark Guehi, and Jeremy Doku. And yeah, City are in the middle of a title push, while Chelsea, who started unbeaten with Liam Rosenwa for a long time there, have now gone on a very long losing streak, and they are being questioned. The manager is being questioned by fans across the league, and it's kind of weird to see because he started off so strong. I was really praising him when they first brought him in, but it feels like him and Carrick with United started in kind of the same area, and Carrick has stayed steady, stayed up, and slowly Chelsea have just gone down and down and down. So yeah, that was very unfortunate for them. And then our final match of the week was Leeds taking on Manchester United and coming away with a win. Leeds with a huge upset and a massive win in the relegation race. Took down Manchester United 2-1. Noah Okafor with 2 goals in the 5th and 29th minutes. Casemiro pulled one back in the 69th minute, but overall, United with a red card from Lisandro Martinez could not overcome Leeds and fell to the upset. This was a massive loss for Manchester United in their UCL hopes, and they are going to have to lock in and really start winning games down the stretch here if they still want to qualify, because Liverpool have slowly started to make their way back up there. We're creeping up there, and we might end up in a UCL spot by the end of the season. So, with that being said, that's all the games around the league for last match week. Not a ton of big news, but the one really huge piece that we have is that Adane Iraola, the Bournemouth manager, is expected to leave the club at the end of the season. His 3-year spell will come to an end following the conclusion of the 25-26 season, and the Cherries will start looking for a new manager. He has definitely overachieved with Bournemouth, and he will be a highly touted manager to end up at a coach-needy team somewhere in the world. I have no doubt that Iraola will find a job somewhere because he did some very, very, very good work with Bournemouth, and I think that's been on display for the entire world to see. So, with that being said, that concludes another week of Football Squared. Thank you all so much for tuning in and week out. Always happy to be here covering your favorite sports, or your favorite soccer and football news, excuse me. Again, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back, like always, every Tuesday from 10 to 11 a.m. Stay tuned for more of the biggest hits and best variety on the Princeton Review's number 18th best college radio station, 3-time 2026 IBS Media Award winner, and 5-time NAB Marconi Radio Award nominee for College Radio Station of the Year, 107.7 The Bronx. Have a good week. Goodbye, everyone.
107.7 The Bronx, WRRC-FM, Lawrenceville.